Hey, today we start the book of Leviticus, the book of law. Leviticus really means basically the root meaning is, and he called, as in capital H, God, and God called. And so throughout the book of Leviticus, we're going to deal a lot with the sacrifices and the priests and rules of law, kind of stuff like that. Here's what we have to understand is the Hebrew people, just like us, uh, we sin, we make mistakes. Sometimes they're little, sometimes they're big. In God's eyes, it's all the same. It doesn't matter how big or how little. And so there's this word that comes into play, and it's called atonement. And atonement means that we pay for something so that we can be clean. You see, in God's presence is perfection. It's beautiful. There is no evil there. There's no darkness. And so how does people like us, or how does people like the Hebrews get close to a God who is perfect? Because we're so imperfect that we can't be in the same presence. And so there has to be this atonement, this paying for our dirtiness, our sin. And so what we're going to see is that they offer sacrifices. In fact, we're going to find that there's a priest on duty all the time, and that's all he's doing is offering birds and lambs and bulls over and over for the people's sins to pay for that. And the idea is that we're free at that point, but but we sin again. And so there's got to be some kind of a purification process. And so Leviticus deals with this issue. The There's a cost for us to be pure. And we're going to find out throughout this book, and then especially back into the New Testament, of what Jesus had to do. And there's just a cost to it, to live in God's perfection. And it should call us to be as holy as we can, so that we can be close to God. So let's start off in Leviticus. The first two chapters, neither one is very long. So let's just go ahead and jump right into it. Leviticus chapter 1:1. The Lord spoke to Moses from the sacred tent and gave him instructions for the community of Israel to follow when they offered sacrifices. The Lord said, "Sacrifices to please me must be completely burned on the bronze altar. Bulls or rams or goats are the animals to be used for these sacrifices. If the animal is a bull, it must not have anything wrong with it. Lead it to the entrance of the sacred tent, and I will let you know if it is acceptable to me. Lay your hand on its head, and I will accept the animal as a sacrifice for taking away your sins. After the bull is killed in my presence, some priests from Aaron's family will offer its blood to me by splattering it against the four sides of the altar. Skin the bull, cut it up, while the priests pile wood on the altar fire to make it start blazing. Wash the bull's insides and hind legs so the priests can lay them on the altar with the head, the fat, and the rest of the animal. A priest will then send all of it up in smoke with a smell that pleases me. If you sacrifice a ram or a goat, it must not have anything wrong with it. Lead the animal to the north side of the altar where it is to be killed in my presence. Then some of the priests will splatter its blood against the four sides of the altar. Cut up the animal and wash its insides and hind legs. A priest will put these parts on the altar with the head, the fat, and the rest of the animal. He will then send all of it up in smoke with a smell that pleases me. If you offer a bird for this kind of sacrifice, it must be a dove or a pigeon. A priest will take the bird to the bronze altar where he will wring its neck and put its head on the fire. Then he will drain out its blood on one side of the altar, remove the bird's craw with what is in it, and throw them on the ash heap at the east side of the altar. Finally, he will take the bird by its wings, tear it partially open, and send it up in smoke with a smell that pleases me. Chapter 2. The Lord said, When you offer sacrifices to give thanks to me, you must use only your finest flour. Put it in a dish, sprinkle olive oil and incense on the flour, and take it to the priest from the Aaron's family. One of them will scoop up the incense together with a handful of flour and oil. Then, to show that the whole offering belongs to me, the priest will lay this part on the bronze altar and send it up in smoke with a smell that pleases me. The rest of this sacrifice is for the priests. It is very holy because it was offered to me. If you take bread in an oven for this sacrifice, use only your finest flour, but without any yeast. You may make the flour into a loaf mixed with olive oil, or you may make it into thin wafers and brush them with oil. If you cook bread in a shallow pan for this sacrifice, use only your finest flour. Mix it with olive oil, but do not use any yeast. Then break the bread into small pieces and sprinkle them with oil. If you cook your bread in a pan with a lid on it, you must also use the finest flour mixed with oil. You may prepare sacrifices to give thanks in any of these three ways. Bring your sacrifice to a priest, and he will take it to the bronze altar. Then, to show that the whole offering belongs to me, the priest will lay part of it on the altar and send it up in smoke with a smell that pleases me. The rest of the sacrifice is for the priests. It is very holy because it was offered to me. Yeast and honey must never be burned on the altar. So don't ever mix either of these in the grain sacrifice. You may offer either of them separately when you present the first part of your harvest to me, but they must never be burned on the altar. Salt is offered when you make an agreement with me, so sprinkle salt on these sacrifices. Freshly cut grain, either roasted or coarsely ground, must be used when you offer the first part of your grain harvest. You must mix in some olive oil and put incense on top, because this is a grain sacrifice. A priest will sprinkle all of the incense and some of the grain and oil on the altar and send them up in smoke to show that the whole offering belongs to me. So as we close, just understand that God expects the best. When they had to give animals, it was the best. When they put things together, it was the best. The best oil, the best flour, the best animals. God expects our best. I mean, why not? He created us, and He's taken care of us, and He's given us life, and He's going to give us eternity. So always give your best to other people, and especially to God. I hope you have a great day.